Welcome, dear friends, to the second part of the essay. So, which type of poems does the essayist call false sweets? He says the poems which were written in the shape of different things like the egg, the axe, the altar. These are the different examples he gives. The essayist then talks about who can be successful in the art of writing such poems. He says, the poet of such poems has to be either a painter or a designer. A poet cannot be successful. Only a poet cannot be successful. He has to be either a painter or a designer. Because for him, the shape is more important. Not the lines of the poem, not the meaning that it conveys, or not the sense that it conveys. So he had to draw the outline of the subject first and conform the description to the figure of the subject. So for him, the shape was more important and not the sense. So the poet was to either contract the shape of the lines had to be shortened or made longer, lengthened, depending on where they occurred. So the wing ର ଉପର ଆଡକୁ ଯୋଉଟା ଥିବ ସେଟା ଟିକେ ଛୋଟ ଥିବ, wing ର ମଝି ଆଡକୁ ଯୋଉଟା ଥିବ ଟିକେ ବଡ ଥିବ, ଅଣ୍ଡାର egg ର ଉପର ଆଡକୁ ଯୋଉଟା ଲାଇନ୍ସ ଗୁଡାକ ଥିବ ସେଟା ଟିକେ ଛୋଟ ଥିବ, ମଝି ଆଡକୁ ଯୋଉଟା ଥିବ ଟିକେ ବଡ ଥିବ. So the lines had to be either contract or dilate. Dilate is to enlarge or widen according to the mold in which it was cast. What is mold? Mold ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ଛାଞ୍ଚ. ମୋଲ୍ଡ ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ଛାଞ୍ଚ ଯୋଉଠି ଯୋଉମାନେ ତିଆରି କରନ୍ତି, ତମେ ଦେଖିଥିବ ମୂର୍ତ୍ତି ତିଆରି କରନ୍ତି, ସେମାନେ ଗୋଟେ ମୋଲ୍ଡରେ ତାକୁ ନେଇକି ପ୍ଲାଷ୍ଟର ଅଫ ପ୍ୟାରିସ ପକେଇ ଦିଅନ୍ତି. ପକେଇଦେଲେ ଇଟ୍ ଟେକ୍ସ ଦି ସେପ୍ ଅଫ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ମୋଲ୍ଡ. ସେମିତି ଫର୍ ଦେମ୍ ସେପ୍ ୱାଜ ମୋର ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ. So the verses were to be cramped or extended in their dimension to the dimension of the frame that was prepared for them. So naturally, so since shape was more important to them, where it was to be shortened, he cut some lines from there, cut some words from there, or he made sure that the next line was a little bit longer. So depending on the shape, he wrote the poem, or he had to make some adjustments. The writer here refers to Procrustes. Procrustes was a Greek, according to the Greek legend, he was a robber, a thief who stole things from people. He was living somewhere in Attica. Attica was a city. He had an iron bed in his home, in which, on which he compelled his victims to lie. So ଯାହାକୁ ସେ ଆକ୍ରମଣ କରୁଥିଲା ତାକୁ ସେ ନେଇଯାଉଥିଲା ଆଉ ସେ ଆୟରନ୍ ବେଡ୍ରେ ତାକୁ ଶୁଆଇ ଦେଉଥିଲା. ତା ଗୋଡଟା ଯଦି ଛୋଟ ହଉଥିଲା, ଆୟରନ୍ ବେଡ୍ରୁ ତାର ଲେନ୍ଥଟା ଛୋଟ ହଉଥିଲା, ତାକୁ ସେ ଲମ୍ବା କରୁଥିଲା ତଳ ଆଡକୁ ଉପର ଆଡକୁ ଟାଣିକିରି. ଏବଂ ଯଦି ବଡ ହେଇଯାଉଥିଲା, he was chopping off the legs, ତା ଗୋଡକୁ କାଟି ଦଉଥିଲା. He had an iron bed on which he compelled the victims to lie. If they were short in shape, he stretched them, and if they were too long, he chopped the part of the legs so that they fitted to the couch. Couch is the bed, the iron bed. Similarly, these people are more concerned about the shape of the poem and not the meaning of the poem. Now, which poets have made use of false sweet? The essayist says that Mr. George Herbert, and the translations of Du Bartas. Du Bartas was a French poet. William Scott translated some of his poetry. In these poems, we find examples of false sweets. Now, the writer says, the essay says, there are other examples of false sweet also. Now, he refers to the picture of King Charles the First. The entire book of Psalms has been written on the lines of his face and the hair of his head. So from a distance, if you watch, you see that, that is the face of the king. These are the hair of the king. But if you go close and if you scrutinize, if you examine, you find that they are not actually hair, They are lines of poems written in the shape of hair. So the entire face and the hair that he has, they are only lines of poems. The writer then talks about an eminent writing master who has transcribed the entire Old Testament in a periwig. Periwig is the long wigs that judges, British judges in India or lamba lamba wig ମୁଣ୍ଡରେ ପିନ୍ଧିଥିବେ ସବୁ ଯିଏ ଜଜ୍ ହେବ ସେ ପିନ୍ଧିବ ଲମ୍ବା ଲମ୍ବା ସେ ଗୋଟେ ପର୍ଟିକୁଲାର ରାଇଟର ବିଷୟରେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ୱିଗଟା ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲ ୱିଗ ନଥିଲା. These were lines of poems which he had written in the shape of a wig. And he had written the entire Old Testament there. And that writer claimed that he could write the entire Apocrypha if the thick wigs were available in the market. He says, if you give me a little more space, I could write many books. Not only one, I can write many books on that. There is one writer who intends to present his mistress a copy of the verses made in the shape of her hand fan. The verses, the lines of the lines of poetry that he wrote, they were shaped in the shape of a fan. They were written in the shape of a hand fan. And he claims that he has already completed 3 sticks. Other sticks have to be completed. Okay. He also has promised the writer to write poetry in the shape of a ring. And the writer says at the end that if this continues, very soon we shall see poetical tippets, handkerchiefs, snuff boxes. Snuff boxes ହେଲା ତମେ ଭାବିବ from a distance you see it's a handkerchief. କିନ୍ତୁ ପାଖକୁ ଗଲା ବେଳକୁ ଦେଖିବ this is not actually a handkerchief. These are lines from a poem. This is a snuff box. Snuff box ହେଲା ଟବାକୋ ପାଉଡର ତା ଭିତରେ ରଖିକି ଗାଁରେ ବୁଢା ଲୋକମାନେ ନାକରେ ତାକୁ ଗେଞ୍ଜନ୍ତି, ନାକରେ ପୁରାନ୍ତି ସେଇ ଷ୍ଟଫ୍, ଧୂଆଁ ପତ୍ର ଟାଇପର ଗୋଟେ ଧୂଆଁ ଗୁଣ୍ଡ, right? Tobacco leaves, powder of tobacco leaves. So poems will be written in these forms also. If you promote such people, they will write poems in different shapes. So what the essayist calls false sweets, the poems which appear in the shape of different things. For example, eggs, for example, axes, for example, in the shape of an altar, in the shape of wings, in the shape of a ring, in the shape of wigs. So all these kinds of things are false sweets. And they are false sweets simply because the poet gives much more importance to the shape and not the sense. So I hope this helps you understanding. In the next video, I will go to the second essay. Thank you very much.